Okay, alhamdulillah, wa salatu wassalamu ala rasulillah, amma ba'd. Maybe we can also discuss if you guys want to change the time, but we can do that later, inshallah. So now, I want you to go to ayah number 16 of Surat al-Kahf, ayah number 16, and this is going to be like the new lesson, right? So here we start talking about them in the cave, right? So we're going to go through this in some detail. First, the ayah says, وَإِذِ اعْتَزَلْتُمُوهُمْ. So اعتزل is to seek seclusion somewhere. That is the word اعتزل. In our Islamic history, we have a group, a famous sect called Mu'tazila for the same reason, like same word, which is to, leave a group and go seek and create another group. That's why they're called Mu'tazila. So here, these people made i'tizal of their folks. So those 7 or so young people, they sought seclusion from their society, from their town, all right? And we discussed last time as to the reasons why they chose this option. Like, why didn't they stay and keep making da'wah? And we're going to see some hints in the surah, in the story itself, why that is so. In fact, and we'll talk about it today, right? If you go skip to ayah number 20, there's some hint as to why they made that choice. So if you look at ayah number 20 quickly, إِنَّهُمْ إِيَظْهَرُوا عَلَيْكُمْ. What could happen? What could have happened if they stayed, if they stuck around? There were obviously 2 choices. يَرْجُمُوكُمْ أَوْ يُعِيدُوكُمْ فِي مِلَّتِهِمْ. Either they would have killed them by stoning. That's rajm, right? By stoning. Or they would have forced them to go back to paganism. All right? أَوْ يُعِيدُوكُمْ فِي مِلَّتِهِمْ. So obviously these are not very appealing choices. Either they could have been killed, or they would have been forced to go back to the old religion, which is paganism. So obviously in those cases, you want to choose to leave town, right? And go and seek seclusion and basically protect and preserve your faith. And this is important. Sometimes people may not understand these priorities correctly. Your number 1 responsibility is toward yourself. Like, before you try and save anyone else, you want to save yourself. Before you try and convert anybody or make da'wah, you want to protect your own faith. You want to protect the faith of your children before you go and protect someone else's faith. This is very, very important, and this priority, sometimes I see it misunderstood, right? So this is an important lesson. They got to a point where their own faith was in jeopardy, or their own life, right? Either I lose my life or I lose my faith. What do? I go and save my life and save my faith. All right? SubhanAllah, but because they tried their best and they had good intentions, even when they were away, their da'wah was taking effect. In fact, many of those people converted to monotheism after these people left. Because those people were missed because of all the good actions they were doing, all the good acts they were doing in that town, they were missed after they disappeared. So even their disappearance was a bliss and was a blessing to that town. And that's because 2 things. They had good intentions and they tried their best. They put all the effort they could. Okay. So now they made that decision to go and seek seclusion in the cave. And Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala mentions here that He will, it's a promise, that He will spread His mercy upon them. So now our exercise here, our job, our homework is to find and to highlight and to pinpoint these, elements of mercy in the story. Because Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala made a promise here. I will spread my mercy on you. Because of all what you did, all the sacrifices you made, I'm going to spread. Yanshur. Nashara is to spread. Yanshur is the present tense. Yanshur is to spread. So Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala will spread His mercy on them. وَيُهَيِّئْ لَكُم مِّنْ أَمْرِكُم مِّرْفَقًا, and He will make it easy for you. So inshallah, in the next couple of verses, we're going to see how Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is spreading His mercy on these people. So ayah number 17. وَتَرَى الشَّمْسَ إِذَا طَلَعَتْ تَزَاوَرُ عَنْ كَهْفِهِمْ ذَاتَ الْيَمِينِ وَإِذَا غَرَبَتْ تَقْرِضُهُمْ ذَاتَ الشِّمَالِ. All right? So I'm not going to go through each and every word. That's why I ask you to read the verses before you come, so we don't have to go through each and every word. I hope you understand the basic meaning, so I don't have to do that. But let's try and imagine the kind of situation that was inside the cave. What was happening? So you read it, you may get a little confused. Oh, the sun on the right, on the left, what's going on? So picture this in your mind. So you have this cave, and it says وَهُمْ فِي فَجْوَةٍ مِّنْهِ. There's some vicinity inside the cave, like some wide space. That's the meaning of fajwa here. All right. Now also there's a narration that says the entrance of the cave was blocked. In fact, it says the soldiers of the king blocked that entrance. We'll talk about that a bit later. But let's assume that the main entrance is not available. It's blocked. Now these people still need sunlight and they need air. So from the mercy of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, there's a little opening on top of the cave that the soldiers were not able to see, because you have to climb all the way up to see it. So I want you to imagine that you have this wide opening inside, and you have this opening on top of the cave. You can look up in a ceiling and you see this opening. And what they did, it appears that they made like a circle around it. So in such a way that when the sun rises, it's going to be at an angle. The sunlight will be at an angle. It'll go like this through the opening, and it will get maybe half of them. So they will see sunlight, but it'll be in the morning, it'll be light. It won't be so strong. All right? And then during the middle, during the day, the middle of the day, it's going to shoot through. So nobody is in the middle, so it's not going to hit anybody. Toward the evening, it's going to basically go again at an angle, and it will shine on those people on that side. So everybody gets sunlight, but that sunlight is easy on the body. It's not going to burn them. You're not going to get a heat stroke, right? If you are sitting right in the middle, right underneath the opening, it will hurt you. So those people were sitting around that middle spot, and they will get only the morning sunlight and the evening sunlight. This is why if you read the ayah carefully, you see Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala mentioning sunlight only sunrise and sunset, or close, like a little after sunrise and a little before sunset. So it says إِذَا طَلَعَتْ, when it rises. And then it says وَإِذَا غَرَبَتْ, when it sets. So that's when they are receiving the sunlight. This is obviously one of the mercies of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Because remember, we talked about the fact that Allah gave them or spread mercy on them. So this is one of the signs of His mercy. The fact that they were receiving air, they were receiving sunlight, but that sunlight was not burning. It was just right. And you don't need it all day. You need sunlight, vitamin D, you need it for, various reasons. You don't want, all kind of germs inside. So the sunlight will help with that. It'll kill the germs. It'll keep the place sanitized, right? And all of that. So they get enough sunlight, but that sunlight does not hurt them or does not harm them. So that is one sign of His mercy. And that basically takes care of this whole passage. وَهُمْ فِي فَجْوَةٍ مِّنْهِ. Again, فَجْوَةٍ مِّنْهِ, like they are basically sitting in the vastness of that cave, in the middle, right? Immediately Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says, ذَلِكَ مِنْ آيَاتِ اللَّهِ. And this is definitely one of the signs of Allah. Go to the next ayah. Another sign. وَتَحْسَبُهُمْ أَيْقَاظًا وَهُمْ رُقُودٌ. You look at them, you think they're awake, but in reality, they're asleep. And here, the Mufassirun have said, if you look at them, their eyes were open, but they were sleeping. We're going to see why. وَنُقَلِّبُهُمْ ذَاتَ الْيَمِينِ وَذَاتَ الشِّمَالِ. And we turn them on the right and on the left. Again, this is to preserve them, to preserve their body. We know if you don't do that, you start developing ulcers. If somebody is sick, God forbid, la samahallah, in the hospital, you always need the nurses to come and turn you around. Otherwise, you get ulcers. And after a while, if it's a long time, your body starts decomposing. If you like the same piece of flesh touching the ground, it will start decomposing. In fact, they say that per night, you turn so many times, like maybe 10 to 40 times, depending on your age, your weight, and all of that. And because it's the body weight that exerts, its weight on your vessels, on your nerves. So if you keep sleeping on the same side for a long time, you're gonna be numb. You're gonna, and later it could become, like I said, worse. So on average, you turn every 15 minutes or 30 minutes. I mean, it's not exact, 15 to 30 minutes. So imagine just, like one night you're turning 10 to 40 times. Now, you can do the math. You're going to multiply by 365 days a year. And they're sleeping around the clock, not just for 6 hours or 8 hours. And then for 309 years, you can do the math. I think it might be above 10 million turns. But yeah, assuming that they doing it on that rate, like 15 or 30, every 15 or 30 minutes. But again, this is one way to preserve their bodies. وَكَلْبُهُمْ بَاسِطٌ ذِرَاعِهِ بِالْوَسِيطِ. Another sign. Their dog, it says, their dog spreading its forelegs. You know how dogs sit like this, right? And also this is like a sitting where they're ready to attack. Right? So that as if they're, as if the dog is protecting them. And it says bil-wasid, right at the entrance. Right at the entrance. Al-wasid is the entrance of the cave. So that's one way to protect them. لو اطلعت عليهم لوليت منهم فرارا ولا ملئت منهم رعبا. If you were to look at them, you would turn and run away. You would run away. ولا ملئت منهم رعبا, and you will be filled with fear and terror just by looking at them. And this is how Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala also protected them. Because if somebody came to the cave wanting to hurt them, they look at these people, they freak out, and they run. So that's how Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala protected them. Right? So, and maybe one reason, as we mentioned earlier, because they were sleeping while their eyes were open. So that's part of the reason why they were scary, or they looked scary to people. Now here there are different versions as exactly what happened. And again, it's not in the Quran, so you don't have to take it literally. But you might encounter these stories and narrations here and there. So maybe one version of the story is that indeed the soldiers of the king were able to catch up with them. And they found out that they were in the cave, and they climbed to the cave. But every time one of them tried to enter, they would see them in that form, and they would freak out and run away, even the soldiers. And that's why Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala mentioned that in the ayah. So not only that this is hypothetical, actually it did happen. That worked. I mean, the way they were sleeping with their eyes open, and how Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala described them as scary, and they would fill your heart with terror, actually it was active. It was working on people. So anyone who tried to get near them, they got so scared and they turned away. And eventually what happened because of this, and people weren't sure what state they were. Were they were they dead? Were they asleep? They weren't sure. But because they were scary and no one was able to approach them, the king said just seal, or just put rocks and seal the entrance of the cave. That's one version of the story, that the entrance, the main entrance of the cave was sealed. And that's why the only source of air and sunlight was, like I said, that opening on top. I mean, that's one version. And later, so obviously later, after the 309 years, it seems like it says one peasant was trying to build, a wall or a garden, and he started taking those rocks, and that's how they discovered those people later. Again, it's a version of the story. You don't have to adopt it or even believe in it, but if you see it, if you encounter it, it is there. But we see the reason why this is so, like why Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala mentioned that these people were sleeping with their eye opens and why they were scary when people looked at them. Okay. So obviously we see many signs of the mercy of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala and how Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala protected them, the way they slept, and how the dog was there, and how they were scary, and also how they were protected from the elements of nature and so on. Okay. Now obviously one of the lessons here, right? One of the lessons is that as long as you do your best for the sake of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, Allah will take care of the rest. Right? Because some people say, well, I know, okay, this is great. These people were awesome, were great. But I don't think it's going to happen to me. I don't think Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala will make miracles for me. But that's not the idea. The idea is that it's not that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala will repeat the exact same miracles. The idea, the lesson here is, as long as you do your best, and they put their lives on the line, these people. They're young people. They had, as we say, their life ahead of them, but yet they put so much for the sake of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. They were sincere, and they also were active, and they were trying their best. This is the criteria that you need. And Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala will take it from there. So Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is telling us here that yes, these are great miracles, and they're not going to happen to everybody. But Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala will do miracle to you in His own way. It doesn't have to be the repetition, the same miracle here. The idea is, as long as you meet those conditions, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala will take care of it. He will take care of the rest. And wallahi, I think this is the kind of faith, this is the kind of iman we need right now. Because the doubt you see today among lots of people, especially young people, and everybody in general, not that they doubt faith or Islam in general. Their doubt is a little different. The doubt is, I'm not sure if Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala will support us, will give us victory. I look around everywhere, and all I see is defeat. I see, despair. I see we haven't been successful. We haven't won anything in the last 50 years, 100 years. So basically you see a lot of frustration. And this in a way is a lack of belief, but not the one that takes you away from Iman or Islam, but rather it's maybe also a lack of belief in our ability to do it, right? But this is the kind of story we need. And it's amazing the fact that such an obscure story that you don't find it in, like I said, though it happened to Christians, you don't find it in the Bible. Obviously, it's happened after Isa alayhi salam. So it's not a common story, but in Islam, we're supposed to recite it every Friday, right? So it's not one of those prominent stories. It's not the story of Musa or the story of Ibrahim or Isa or Muhammad alayhi salatu salam. It's a story of unknown people. We don't even know their names, right? Yet it is the story that we recite every Friday. So think about that. Because it is a story of faith, of sacrifice, of putting everything you got and having faith in Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala that He will compensate you, that He will turn things all right. He will make things all right. So now comes another phase in the story. Now remember also, I mentioned last time, there was this mention of Raqim, this record of these people, right? So obviously these people were, especially because those people were, like I said, the children of noble people. So obviously some people missed them. Some people actually were angry at the king because he was the reason why they disappeared, why they went missing. And again, you see different versions. Some people say their names were engraved on a tablet. And that tablet was put on the front of the cave, the entrance of the cave. Also, it might have been put by a couple of soldiers who were believers, but they were hiding their belief. So after sealing the entrance and everybody left, they put that there. Again, I mean, these are versions of the story, but it is definitely correct that there was another group of people who were keeping track of these people. They deeply cared about these people. They kept track of them and their sacrifice, and they kept their names. And it says in one version again that they became saints later when everybody converted to the religion of Isa alayhi salam. Those people were considered saints because they gave everything they got for the sake of their faith when no one else believed except them. Okay, so now let's go to ayah number 19. So here Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says, وَكَذَلِكَ بَعَثْنَاهُم. This is how we resurrected them from their sleep. Ba'athna. Al-ba'ath, we know, is resurrection. Here, it's a minor resurrection. They were resurrected from their sleep. Now, it says, we did it so that they start asking themselves questions. لِيَتَسَاءَلُوا بَيْنَهُمْ. Those questions were not only about how long they stayed. Obviously, they woke up and everything looked different. And not only that, I mean, when they start deciding like who's gonna go to the town and get some food because they're so hungry. And one narration says like they sent a shepherd because he was the least known. They're so afraid that there's a king out there who's gonna kill them. They did not know anything about the change yet. They did not realize they slept for 300 or so years. In fact, initially they said, كم لبثتم? How long do you think you've stayed? قالوا لبثنا يوما أو بعض يوم. Maybe a day, maybe half a day. That's how it felt like. Imagine 309 years felt like a day or half a day, or a part of a day. Again, they're hungry. So they said, let's send one of us to go and buy some food. فَابْعَثُوا أَحَدَكُمْ بِوَرِقِكُمْ. Al-wariq is like the silver coin. So this is the currency at the time. So they had some money. Again, they were rich, right? So they had some money. And back then, every currency had the engraving of the king's picture. So from what generation or what what phase of the rule, like what rule, like what king, right? So just by looking at the currency, you can tell whose king it was at the time. And as soon as a new king comes, they basically cancel that currency and print a new currency with the engraving of the new king. So it's easy to tell where you lived and what currency you're using, like from what time. So they had those currencies. They had the wariq, which is made out of silver. And they said, we're going to send one person with that money to the city. إلى المدينة. فلينظر أيها أزكى طعاما. Let them look for the best food, the most delicious food, the most, like the purest food. Because zakat also means purity. The purest food. Let them get you some of it, right? فليأتكم برزق منه وليتلطف. Let me stop here. يتلطف. Two things about يتلطف, very interesting. First is that the place of يتلطف in the Quran. This is right the middle of the Quran, right? Like this word is like the middle of the Quran. We know Surah al-Kahf itself is the middle surah. Juz' number 15, right? It's right in the middle of the Quran. And the word yatalattaf is the middle of the Quran. Like, you count how many words before yatalattaf and how many words after yatalattaf, they're going to be the same number, same amount. But it's also very interesting, the meaning of yatalattaf. Like, because we say Islam is the religion of moderation, it's always in the middle, between two extremes. But look at the word yatalattaf. It means be gentle, be careful. This is one of the very profound lessons of the story and of Islam in general. And the reason it is so important today because we see the opposite. We see a lot of Muslims doing the opposite. We see, yatalattaf is opposite of being brute and crude and rash. Rushing, being so emotional, not using your wisdom, your intellect. That's the opposite of yatalattaf. Yatalattaf is be gentle, be careful. Don't jump into your own death just because you're so excited, or you're so emotional, or you're so angry. This is actually an advice that the Prophet ﷺ gave to Aisha radiallahu anha. He told her, مَا كَانَ اللُّطْفُ فِي شَيْءٍ, or rifq and lutf are the same, similar. He said, anytime you put gentleness into something, he said, إِلَّا زَانَهُ, it will make it so balanced. And anytime you take it away from something, it will become, he says, shana, it becomes ugly. Think of that. So Islam is a religion of being gentle and careful. Think about the consequences of your action. Don't just say, I do it because I want to do it, because I'm angry or upset, or I feel like I want to do it. No. Consult with the older people. Usually they have some wisdom. Think about it. Think through it. Think of the consequences, what could happen. I can give you example after example. Look at the ayah in the Quran where Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says, do not curse the idols, because the worshippers of the idols will come back and curse your God. They will curse Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Some people might be so enthusiastic. Oh, of course we should curse the idols. They don't deserve to be worshipped. They deserve the cursing. Even so, think about the consequences of your actions. Those idols have worshippers, and those worshippers will come back and curse your God. They will curse Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. فَيَسُبُّ اللَّهَ عَدْوًا بِغَيْرِ عِلْمٍ. Those people will curse Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala without knowledge. And with transgression, adwan. The Prophet ﷺ, in the hadith, he says, لَعْنَ اللَّهُ مَنْ لَعْنَ وَالِدَيْهِ. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala will curse the people who will curse their own fathers or own parents. And the companions were so curious. How would someone curse his own parents? He said, no. It happens like this. You go and curse someone else's parents, and they will come and curse your parents. Now you are the reason why these people are cursing your parents. You are the reason why your parents are cursed. Be careful, be wise. Think about the consequences of your actions. Don't say, I only think this much. I only think about the immediate result. And I don't care what other people say. How many times do you hear this? I don't care what other people, I don't care what the kuffar think. I don't care what this think or that think. This is not the religion of Islam. Islam told us to be careful, told us to be gentle, told us to be wise, told us to think about the consequences of our actions. And this is the same thing here. They could have said, oh, we have all the faith, we don't care about the soldiers, we don't care about the king. Let's go, and if somebody finds out, they'll kill us and we'll be martyrs. They didn't say that. They said, وَلْيَتَلَطَّفْ. Go, be careful, don't be caught. Why would you die unnecessarily? You did all this. You spread your message, you went to the cave, you slept for so many years. They don't know this yet, but you did all this, and then you just go die in vain? Islam does not tell you to go and die in vain. وَلْيَتَلَطَّفْ. All right? وَلَا يُشْعِرَنَّ بِكُمْ أَحَدًا. Don't let anybody see you. Don't let anybody find out. So again, you see the ayah explaining further the meaning of yatalattaf. All right. And why? The next ayah says why? إِنَّهُمْ إِن يَظْهَرُوا عَلَيْكُمْ. Because if they catch you, right? If they find out, either they will kill you, يَرْجُمُكُمْ, they will stone you to death, أَوْ يُعِيدُكُمْ فِي مِلَّتِهِمْ, or they will force you to go back to your old religion, paganism. What do you gain? What do you gain from that? That's a question we should be asking all the time. What do I gain from my action? Other than, I think I'll be a martyr. Martyrdom is great, but again, it has to be for a reason. You don't just throw your life away, right? This is not from Islam, to throw your life away. So you always have a purpose, a reason. يرجموكم أو يعيدوكم في ملتهم. Yes.
So is that from a subjective standpoint or an objective standpoint? Because one can take it from a subjective standpoint where, oh, I think I'm doing what is good, but in fact it could be harmful. Versus from the objective standpoint as discussed here, it is reasoning it out, going through all the way from a perspective, or going from Allah's perspective, or from the individual's perspective. So where's the bottom line? Is it coming from one or the other, or both?
Oh, wow. Let me make sure I understand it. But I think it is from the person's perspective in that sense. And obviously, you do your part and Allah will do His part. But it is from their perspective, again, if you read it here, because they want to, the number one goal here, and we call them objectives of Sharia even. When we study Sharia in details, there are multiple objectives, like 5 objectives. Number 1, protection of life. You want to protect your life. That's number 1 objective. That's why killing is haram. Number 2, you want to protect your faith, right? Then you want to protect your property. This is why robbery or theft is haram. You want to protect your honor. This is why fornication and adultery is haram. You want to protect your intellect. That's why drinking is haram. So these are objectives of Sharia. So basically any rule you find in Sharia is going to fall under one of those objectives. So you see here 2 objectives. One, protecting their life. The other, protecting their faith. And these are maybe the highest objectives. I mean, those are maybe more important than protecting your property or protecting your intellect, right? All right. Okay. So now, if you go to ayah number 21, we have to keep track in time. What time is it? I can't see. 39?
39.
Oh, 39, yes. Because we want to keep some time for questions, inshallah. You kind of notice a jump again, because here it says, وَكَذَلِكَ أَعْثَرْنَا عَلَيْهِمْ. It implies that they died. And again, the Quran is not going to tell you all the details of what happened in between, right? But again, if you read the narrations and the stories, it seems that after they were found, one version says that they were taken to the city. So first of all, by the way, let's say the shepherd was the first one to go to the city. So I want you to imagine the amount of surprise, like him not realizing it's been 300 and so years. Everything was different. He barely could recognize the town. And then there's an interesting story about when he presented his money to the merchants, like he was trying to buy bread. And they looked at this and said, this is like a treasure. Like, this money is like, it's not been printed in 300 years. Where do you get this from? And it took a while until each one of them realized that they were not from the same time. So I would let your imagination here work. I mean, we don't have to speculate, but you could imagine. Another thing which is really interesting, and this is like a thought experiment, how many generations you think have passed between the beginning and the end? Can you guess? We should make it more interactive. I'm usually like this. So we have about, like I said, 300 or so years. How many generations of people, like your kids, your grandkids, great-grandkids, and how many of those generations you think? Only 4?
3 generations every 100 years, so...
Okay. How old are you usually when you have kids? Yeah, that's how it counts, right? 25 to 30, when you have the first kid. So we could say that every new generation starts 25 years later from you, from the time you were born. Fair enough? Yeah. If you count like this, exactly. So it's like 10 to 12. Whether we say 25 or 30 years, maybe some people are late in having their own, the first son or daughter. So it could be between 10 to 12 generations. That's a lot of generations in 300 or so years. 309. 9. Yeah. So, roughly speaking, maybe 10 to 12 generations. So imagine I'm going back to town, and let's say like I think at least one of them had a kid. I think the leader. So if you had a kid, and now you're going back, you have a chance to meet your great grandson or daughter. If you're gonna count 10 generations, right? Just let that sit in. Think about that. Just a thought experiment. So that's a lot of generations. The reason I asked, I knew you're gonna say that initially, that you think it's only like 3-4 generations. It's more than that, much more than that. Okay. Because obviously multiple generations co-live, right? You be alive while your grandkid could be, or even your great-grandkid is alive. So that's what you have to account, not how long each generation is, but because we have concurrent generations. But how many generations you're able to produce in that span of time. And that's about 10 to 12 generations. So that's really interesting. Like, I just be in their shoes for a minute. They're going back to town, and it says like they did go back to town eventually, all of them. And again, you can't imagine the amount of shock and surprise, not only on them, but also the inhabitants of the town. But eventually it says that they were so used to be in that cave and wanting to feel the peace and tranquility and to worship Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, so they decided to go back to the cave. Like they couldn't, and don't underestimate this, that if you lived at a particular time or place, right, and then you left and came back way later, right? Or if you were living in one place and you came back to a place where it's totally different, like the whole culture has changed, everything has changed, you don't recognize anybody, you'd feel, a longing to your original place. So they wanted to go back to the cave. And it looks like they may have died immediately because their mission was over now. So they died. And that's why here immediately you see a jump in Ayah 21 talking about how they're going to be commemorated, how they're going to be remembered. So obviously you do that after they've died. So it says, وَكَذَلِكَ أَحْثَرْنَا عَلَيْهِمْ لِيَعْلَمُوا أَنَّ وَعْدَ اللَّهِ حَقٌّ وَأَنَّ السَّاعَةَ لَا رَيْبَ فِيهَا. Another lesson here that the Quran mentions in the story is the lesson of resurrection. The major resurrection on the Day of Judgment. Because anytime in the Quran you see a story about resurrection, this is one of them, but that's not the only one, it is reminding people that this is what will happen eventually, that everybody will be resurrected on the Day of Judgment. Now what happened at the time, there was a dispute among the people of the village. How are we're going to honor these people? How are we going to honor these people? Because, subhanAllah, they gave up everything. Right? And maybe the whole town is believers because of them. So there was a dispute. Some of them said, we can build something, فَقَالُوا بْنُوا عَلَيْهِمْ بُنْيَانًا, like build an edifice or some form of a building to commemorate their, memory. And then it says the majority of people said, we will make a masjid or take a masjid upon them. Something like this. I mean, we'll talk about that. So it seems like here the majority meaning the people of the town. Like maybe not the rich people. Because usually the poor people are the majority, right? So it seems like maybe the rich people thought one thing, like we're going to make this fancy building, and the rest said, no, let's just make it a masjid. And here, by the way, a masjid does not mean like a masjid with a dome, and most likely it wasn't even like that at the time. But a masjid simply means a place of worship, a place of prostration. And that's why the Prophet ﷺ in the hadith, he said, وَجُعِلَتْ لِيَ الْأَرْضُ مَسْجِدًا وَطَهُورًا. He said that the whole entire earth has been made to me, for my ummah, as a masjid. Here it does not mean that every place on earth there is a masjid like this one. It means anywhere you go, you can pray. You don't need an actual building. That's what it means here. That the whole earth has been made a place of purity, so I can make tayammum if I have to. I can pray on it if I have to. I don't have to check to see if it is, najis or not, or pure or impure. If you go like, and this is like by default. Unless you see the pure najasa, if you see a najasa right in front of you, that's different. In that case, you don't pray on the najasa. But basically he's saying by default, if you go anywhere, especially in nature, you see a piece of land, you prostrate on the ground, on the earth, on the dust, on the sand, on the, what have you, on the soil. That is pure by definition. That is the hadith of the Prophet ﷺ. So this earth has been made, masjid and tahur. You can pray on it and you can make tayammum with it. So that is usually the meaning of a masjid. A masjid is any place where you pray, where you make sujood. That's what the word masjid comes from. A place where you prostrate, you make sajda. That is the word masjid. Okay, I think we have about 15 or so minutes. So the remaining of the story, there's not much going on. I mean, we can maybe quickly go through it. So there's one ayah that talks about the number. And many scholars have said the last number mentioned is the right number, which is 7, right? And the 8th would be the dog. And indeed, if you look it up, usually you see the 7 sleepers. So it seems like this is a number that has gained the most popularity, even, out there. But in the Quran, most likely it is the last number mentioned, which is 7, and the 8th was a dog. But again, this is not, and that's the problem, a lot of people focus on that and forget the main lessons of the story. And this is the lesson here. The lesson here is that numbers are not the point here. That's why Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala told them, فَلَا تُمَارِ فِيهِمْ إِلَّا مِرَاءً ظَاهِرًا. Don't argue about it. It's not worth it. The other lesson you see in 2 ayat, ayah number 23 and 24, do not do anything except by saying inshaAllah. Whenever you plan, you intend to do something, don't forget to say inshaAllah. Now the reason here, why is it mentioned here? Remember initially, like last time, I said that the reason, the revelation of the story is that the people of Quraysh came to the Prophet ﷺ and challenged him. They consulted with the people of the book. And they said, come up with some obscure story that no one has heard of. And they said, this is the story of the cave. So go ask the Prophet ﷺ if he knows anything about the story. And don't just ask him a question like this, like an open question or a general question. Ask him specifically 2 things. How many were they? How many people were they? And how long they stayed? So this is like a nitty-gritty detail that many people may not know, right? So when they came to the Prophet and said, this is a challenge, can you answer it? The Prophet ﷺ said, yes, I will tell you tomorrow, but he forgot to say inshaAllah. And for that purpose, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala delayed the revelation for maybe about 15 days. And this is a reminder, and this is also a show that it's not the knowledge of the Prophet, it is the knowledge from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. So that's the story, the lesson here. Number 1, anytime you want to do something, say inshaAllah. Don't rely on your own strength or on your own power. And the second lesson is that revelation is not from Prophet Muhammad. Because if it was from Prophet Muhammad, he would have given the answer right away. He's not making up stuff in his mind. No, he's waiting for the revelation. Even if he has to embarrass himself, like he said, I'll give you the answer tomorrow, and he had to wait for 15 days. And everybody was worried, the Sahaba were worried, the Muslims were worried, right? But so what? Revelation is revelation. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala decides when it's going to come. And Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala decided that it will come after some days, few days. So that's these 2 ayat. And then the final ayah, or the final 2 ayat, it specifically mentions how long the duration was, because that is the other answer that people were waiting for. And you see that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala waited. Look, those answers came at the very end of the story, because they're not the main purpose of the story. So you notice that these answers, like how many people were they and how long they stayed, it came at the very end of the story. So we learn all the beautiful stuff about the people of the cave and the sacrifice they made and the lessons we learn from them. And at the very, very end, we learn, okay, and by the way, yeah, they stayed 309 years. Are you satisfied now? Now you know how long. But that's not the main purpose of the story. By the way, and I don't, if you, I mean, some people pursue the numerical, miracles of the Quran. I heard this, and I think I've done it once a long time ago, but you're welcome to do it. One time I heard a scholar say, if you count the number of words from the beginning of the story until this very word that mentions the number of years, 309 years, you will count 309 words. So if you count from the beginning of the story, not the surah. أَمْ حَسِبْتَ أَنَّ أَصْحَابَ الْكَهْفِ وَرَقِيمٍ. You go back to ayah number 9, you start counting the words. Like حَسِبْتَ أَنَّ. So maybe one of you or some of you could do this. Not now, you don't have to do it now. But like a homework.
1926 is 309 words.
So you start from ayah number 9, yes, and you exactly end it. But not till the end of ayah number 26. You have to stop at ayah number 25, and you stop at the number itself. لَبِثُوا فِي كَهْفِهِمْ 300 سِنِينَ وَازْدَادُوا تِسْعًا. I think you count until وَلَبِثُوا فِي كَهْفِهِمْ or something. I mean, you can figure it out. So if you count the words, they come up to be 309. So they say this is one of the numerical signs or miracles of the Quran. But again, like we said last time, the real miracles are these revolutionary lessons, and really the fact that if we take it seriously and we act upon it, it will really turn your life around, and it'll actually provide lots of answers that Muslims today are waiting for, and they're eager to have. Like, what is the way out of our confusion, our defeat, our despair, our this and that? You find a lot of the answers in the surah or in the story itself. And the heroes of the story are young people, so don't forget that. Okay, I'll stop here, inshallah. If there are any questions or any comments or anything you want to add, inshallah. Yes.
Back to ayat number 19 and 20. I'm a little.
19 and 20. Okay.
Okay, so this is after they woke up. How long you been here? A day, maybe half a day. They get food, or they get money to go into town to buy food.
Okay.
Now, is this is also when they're saying be careful because, hey, we think, if they notice that you're different, they could, stone you. But you didn't mention that they would return into their traditions, which would be paganism. But if the culture had changed, maybe I'm confused about the timeline. Did they change from paganism to Christianity at this time when they left the cave? So wouldn't they try to convert them to Christianity and not paganism, or was it still in a pagan time?
No. So let's recount the timeline carefully. Initially, they were the only ones who were like true Christians, in the sense they were Unitarian. So they believed in one God based on the message of Isa alayhi salam, right? And that's the reason why they sought seclusion in the cave, because they could no longer protect their faith. They were afraid that the king will force them to convert back to paganism. All right. So now they went to the cave and they slept for 309 years. Only that they did not know this. When they woke up, they thought it was only a day and a half. So obviously, they still think that the soldiers are out there, the pagan king is still out there. If they went to the village, obviously, they're going to recognize these people. They just left yesterday. They just fled yesterday. So they're going to force them back to the old religion, the paganism, right? Or they're going to kill them. That's why they had to be careful and, not cause any undue attention. Does that make sense?
Yes.
Okay, alhamdulillah. Yes.
Okay, I just lost the ayah, but okay, no, it's in ayah 21. But so when they were asked, when the people were conferring on whether or not to build a place of worship or to build a structure around them, when it says worship, is it worship to these people or worship to worship in the sense of a masjid or Allah? Like make it
No. So the question is, when they mentioned worship, And we have to be careful here. The word worship itself is not mentioned, but the word masjid, which implies worship, right? So the question is it really talking about them worshiping the dead or them worshiping Allah in that place? Of course, it is a second, because by then those people were believers. So they all now believe in one God. So obviously they're not gonna worship the saints, because those, again, some people might have considered them to be saints because of the sacrifice they made, but still the idea here is that to honor them, we're gonna make that whole place a holy place, a place of worship. Yes.
You mentioned that when they awakened, it was most likely the time that the Roman Empire had converted to Christianity. But wasn't it the case that the Roman Empire converted to like Pauline Christianity that was Trinitarian, and they didn't believe in one God? So when they went out to town, most of the people would have been Trinitarian, right?
That's a good, interesting, comment. So the brother is saying, you said that by the time they woke up, you said that the whole empire, including this town, converted to Christianity, but it is not the case that it would have been the Pauline, meaning following Paul, that kind of Christianity, which obviously pushes a Trinitarian type of Christianity, that believe in the Trinity and not the Unitarian. And I thought about this too. Now, we know very clearly that before they went to sleep, they definitely were monotheists. The message in the Quran is super clear, that they called for one Allah, one God, one divine being, and they basically denounced all the other gods. It is not that clear that when they came back, they had even the time or the chance to go into those details. But obviously, when they went back, on the surface, they were on the same religion, right? So they did not go into the details, are you Trinitarian, are you Unitarian? But the bottom line is, I'm not going to persecute you regardless of the sect of the Christianity that you follow, right? It seems like this was the case, that, okay, they came back, we know how much they sacrificed for the religion, we consider them to be like saints and whatever, but there's no discussion of what sect of